My name is Charlie Fiordalis, and I'm the moderator here. I'm a managing partner at Mediacom, and I'm joined by Rachael Henke, who's a senior director of brand and B2B campaigns at Dell Technologies. Welcome, Rachael.
Thank you.
And we have worked together for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I just celebrated my 4-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Other exciting news, this is the first time I've put on a button-down shirt in like 2 weeks, and it feels empowering.
Yeah. I wear, yeah, anything with a button these days is definitely mind-blowing challenge. Yeah.
Well, I'm feeling like I miss a little of the formality of things. And I think it's nice to talk a little bit about B2B, because you can't help but talk about B2B without sitting up a little straighter. I mean, because we're talking about business here, and right, you did it as well, right?
I know, you just said it and I immediately sprung to attention.
And I mean, there have been these moments in the last year where we have to be at work through our computers, but we're at home. I mean, there's the boundary between work and life is now gone. The boundary between business to business and business to consumer is much thinner. Like if you're a B2B buyer and you're at home, you're also in the pandemic, you're at home, you're a consumer as well, all of this. And there's a lot of accelerated change. And I mean, my first question is that so much has been written on the effects of COVID on consumer behavior. And we all really resonate with that because we're consumers. But, there's an equally large effect that this has had on B2B.
Yeah.
And of course, none of us saw COVID coming, but what did you think would be changing in the near future at the beginning of 2020?
Yeah.
And then what actually did?
Okay. So that's a lot to unpack here. So one thing I do want to level set to, because this is a B2B conversation, is that there are so many ways you can buy technology as a B2B, and then there's their financing. We could go down the rabbit hole. We won't do that. But to simplify it, you can buy direct, usually through a direct relationship with a sales rep. So at Dell Technologies, you have your Dell Technologies sales rep. You can also buy through a reseller, which we call the channel, which is like basically a relationship that's managed by a channel partner. So that's actually a significant amount of how our technology is sold, especially in rest of the world outside the US. So our customers really can buy technology increasingly. They've actually, before COVID set in, it was like they wanted to do more self-service as well, like online. So really kind of like taking a little bit of that human relationship away, because a lot of they were educated and they're like, hey, we can do this ourselves. So that we noticed that shift as well, which is that self-service. But it's interesting to see some of this shifting and really, really fast. So before COVID, that there was a lot of indicators of how things were starting to evolve. So B2B historically, if you look back, has really been sales-led, personalized, white glove service, if you will, type of experience. But we already saw some of those changes in behavior with B2B organizations indicating that, hey, like I said, we can do this ourselves. And really driving those purchases online. We have what we call a premier site, which is for B2B customers. And so we already saw some of the self-service B2B commerce sales go up. And so it was around 14% in 2015, and it was up to 18% in 2019, just before COVID. And so at the same time, purchases through sales reps declined. So you can see that a lot of ITs were taking this on themselves. So they also why they have larger buying teams, and so a lot of the businesses are taking that IT in-house, and so for us that meant that we needed to make sure that not only did our sales reps and channel have all this information, we needed to make sure that we had all this content and materials, from outcomes to specs to cost, available to them, online as well. So those were some of the biggest shifts that we started seeing as we started to enter COVID. But then the other trend, which I know we're going to dive in deeper, which is really about the ownership of the technology itself and the maintenance.
So how is Dell Technologies evolving for this? I mean, it's amazing that we already had this shift going towards B2B buyers being more self-directed and having a much larger audience to go after. we've shifted our budgets and our tactics, going much more towards digital to have more personalized conversations, with them.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's not enough just to do that. You also have to evolve your business. So how's Dell Technologies evolve their business for these shifts in buyer behavior?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things, and we'll spend some time on this today, is really what we call as a service, which is renting versus owning, or if you look at it, how I like to compare it is think of it as a utility company, which is you pay for what you use. No longer are companies starting to own it. So it's like what people when you talk about that consumerism of it. But that just creeping into B2B, it's like the Netflix of something. So the Netflix of movies, music, this is like the Netflix of B2B IT. It's a subscription model. And so according to Gartner, more than half of enterprise technology buyers now say that they're going to start acquiring tech via subscription versus actually like owning and managing it on premise themselves.
Yeah, it really makes sense. I mean, we've seen such incredible demand around it and interest, and I haven't been surprised. I mean, I always feel very fortunate to work with Dell Technologies, just
Hmm.
because, like, even at the beginning of the pandemic, I was thinking, oh, this is terrible. Terrible things are happening. But I work with a company that saw this coming. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
Dell Technologies has helped so many companies through this to be able to virtualize their workforces,
Mhm.
to be able to, to enable all of us to connect together and to continue on business. And I mean, I see some of the reasons, but from your point of view, why are B2B buyers moving
Yeah.
towards, a subscription model for their corporate technology needs?
Well, I mean, to start, it's much simpler. So you actually don't have to own the technology and maintain it and fix it and repair it. So if you think of like a huge data center, right? That is especially for even like some small and mid-sized companies that have a lot of data. I mean, that can take up a huge footprint of your organization or a warehouse. And so if you don't actually have to own that technology and manage it, you're saving labor costs, you're saving headaches, you're saving all of that initial like having to manage that infrastructure. So we do all of that. So we're just like selling a service. We're not selling the boxes itself. It also allows for greater agility, and this is where we see a lot of the benefits. So, say a business needs to increase their storage capacity quickly. In the past, they would have to call their sales rep, get a quote, maybe get a competing quote, hope that it's in their budget, order the equipment, get the equipment, install it, and hopefully you're up and running in a few weeks. But realistically, it's probably a few months, depending on the supply chain. And then you have to manage all of it as well. You have to have like employees manage it as well. Now, like this can literally happen overnight. Okay, you need more storage. So we tend to, for as a service, we over provision. So basically, we put more technology, available than they're actually using at the time. So it's really available and ready to turn on instantly. Transparent pricing, which really brings me to that next, benefit, which is control. So customers can really dial up or dial down the technology they need at any given moment, and you only pay for what you use. The other part that we get a lot is just the security, and a lot of different organizations need to have their technology on premise or hybrid, and so we've really figured this out, through what we call our as a service Apex. That's what we call our as a service model. And so we have figured out through Apex of how to manage that on-prem security control requirements and still just pay for what you use. So, really this overall flexibility saves businesses what they need most, which is time. And so their time can be spent running their business, rather than trying to get that technology to support it. And I heard a quote once that I really like, and I keep remembering. I don't even know who to attribute it to, but it was really this theory of like we're going from businesses running at the speed of their technology to technology running at the speed that your business needs. So no longer does technology become that bottleneck. It really becomes that enabler to help businesses go to the next level right away.
As a service is tremendously powerful. And I know it's been coming towards technology for a long time, specifically in, maybe more specialist companies. But Dell Technologies is the first to be able to do it, fully end to end across everything.
We're getting there. We're not there yet, but we're getting there.
Hey, I'm in marketing.
Sorry about that.
So are you. We can
Yeah,
say this.
yeah.
But really, where are companies kind of starting? What areas and how are they navigating that as a service choice?
Well, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, everyone's heard of the cloud. So that's, the really the easy way in. But we're really expanding that. So earlier this month, we announced our as a service portfolio called Apex. And we already had those cloud offerings, and we called them on demand, but now they're really part of our Apex portfolio. Coming out of the gate, we'll continue with the cloud, but we're really starting off, let's just say, our lead solution that we're looking for is Apex Data Storage Services. And so, according to IDC, in the next year or two, like by 2024, more than half of all that data center infrastructure will be consumed as a service. So not only do we need to be in this space, and we wanted to make sure that we're leading in this space. So, but we're not stopping there. So our vision really is to start to look at our entire technology portfolio for business and perhaps even consumer down the road, and have it be available as a service. So, for one day example, you want to have PC as a service. And, if you world, which B2B has largely been inspired by for a lot of this, is that they're getting used to having like a new phone every year. And sometimes you pay a monthly fee. And so that really guarantees you to have the latest technology in your hands. Well, businesses are saying the same thing. They want their employees to have the best laptop at any given time. And so, this really does help for employee retention, but then it also just allows them to make sure that greatest technology at any given moment. So, the benefits really are just that higher productivity, lower cost, in terms of like being able to maintain that. And so, and really, we're excited about it. And some of the customers we've been talking to are really excited about it as well. And as a marketer, this is a really great proposition to put in the marketplace in an exciting way. And not to lead anyone on or anything, but next month, keep your eye out. We're going to start to really put our Apex campaign into the marketplace and really launch as a service, in a big, broad way. And it's going to be, let's just say, explosive. We're really excited. So, all right. Let's so as we've discussed, so I'm really more in this B2B space, but Charlie, you work across all of Dell Technologies, and so when we were talking about having this conversation, we were saying, how do we cover both most effectively? So we're going to talk to you about consumer.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So want to understand kind of the same thing. Like, what did you think would be changing in the near future at the beginning of 2020?
Well, our profession is all about change. Even when I went towards digital in the mid 90s, it was because it was new, it was exciting, and that's what's kept us sharp and engaged for decades on this. Is that it's a continuing journey. Something is always changing. And I think if I were to look back at all the slide decks that I've made over the past many years, a good number of them have a slide in there about like the pace of change and everything that's changing. Like change really is kind of the only constant. So even before COVID, we were already talking about, what are the major changes that are going to happen? Media usage is one of those that we expected a continuation of the digital trends, that online video ads would continue to go up, that social media usage would continue to go up, not necessarily Facebook and Instagram. We were already looking at TikTok pretty strongly even before they were the biggest pandemic hit out there. And CTV as well. 4 years ago, we were doing tests on CTV. And within the next couple of years, depending on shifts in the market, it could become the primary way that we advertise, on television. All we really need is somebody like Netflix to have an ad-supported tier. So Netflix, I'm encouraging you if you listen to this. I would love an ad-supported tier, and I think your consumers would as well. You're going to go to 1 billion if you do that. So I thought those are going to change. I also thought esports, that we were going to have an expected continuation of growth. This is not just because I have kids who are 13, 11, and 9 who are all avid gamers, and I feel like I'm in the middle of it. It's everyone. Everyone has gotten into gaming in a big way. Even before COVID, during COVID, it's significantly taken off. And then podcasts. We made this really big bet on podcasts in 2020, and launching the Dell Small Business Podference. And we've continued to do that this year, of course. And just podcasts are this wonderful area where people don't separate what they're hearing from who they're hearing it from. Like, they think that the host is their friend, and the host of the show is telling them that they use this product. It's kind of an amazing.
They're not my friend? Oh my gosh.
They are, absolutely. Joe Rogan's
I know.
my best friend.
I'm a huge podcast. I could list off like a lot of, especially business podcasts. I love them. I walk and listen to them all the time. No, but here, the funny thing about COVID, and across different industries, when COVID hit, it really paused a lot of industries. But with technology, it was like opposite. Like, it accelerated it, and with that media. So what were some of those things that you were maybe surprised with COVID? What really super sped up in your world as well?
Oh, there were, so many surprises. And I look back at it thinking about what it was like to experience it. And I just have to do a quick shout out to Brian Weiser, who's our essentially head of business intelligence across all of Group M. And he really helped us navigate it. He had, Thursday morning calls for the duration of things. And I would join those calls and just furiously writing down notes, because I was, surprised by how fast things were shifting. And I think we've actually gotten used to a faster pace of change throughout this. If I were to look at it, media usage, it's still the same things. Media usage and esports and podcasts really changed. But on media usage, TV was up, not long term, but there was this moment, for a couple of months where the TV curve shifted, and we went back a couple of years in terms of, reach. And that was amazing to see in the short term. And it was actually right about the time that oil futures went negative. Crazy things were happening, and oil futures going negative was essentially saying you have to store it somewhere, and there's nowhere to even store it, and there's no value of this thing that you have. It was incredibly crazy. And for TV, there's so much more television out there now because this is an available inventory. Television commercials are based on puts, like people using television, and so many more people were using television. And that, so the reality is that online video is really still continues to erode, traditional television as, platforms like YouTube become more popular and they reach more TV devices. And, social media wasn't just up slightly. It was up, just like 25% year over year in terms of just looking at something really even like ad volume. Esports was really up significantly too. And in terms of esports, I think Twitch is a really good bellwether to look at. We get very good data on what's going on with Twitch. And they've tripled in size with the average number of viewers, increasing from around 1 million a month at the end of 2019 to 3 million in 2021.
I didn't realize it was that high. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've actually found things like I was not a gamer before this, and I have found myself watching, because I started playing with my kids to really connect with them. There's nothing like playing a video game with your kids and then they actually talk to you like you're a kid.
I know, right? Yeah.
You get that as well?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I'm not going to drop what they play, but yeah, it's probably like simpler versions, but oh my gosh, they're obsessed. They spend their allowance. That's where it goes, So yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, I invested in Roblox as quickly as I could. And
I was saying, that's exactly that's where all my money's going right now. But the great part is even like during the pandemic, it was such a social outlet for them, because you couldn't have those in-person play dates. So they figured out how to call each other, and then they just kind of like sit on the phone all day, but then play Roblox at the same time, and they loved it. They had so much fun.
Yeah, I think that's another thing, really big thing that we saw with esports is that people really needed a new way to connect with each other. And there's something that's very immediate and transactional about texting. Certainly the same thing, happens with any type of like email. It's very transactional, but if you're in a video game environment, you can focus on one thing and talk about another, like, and another big trend that's going on is people watching old television shows and having viewing parties with their friends, watching Friends.
Oh,
That
okay.
type of a
See,
thing.
I like that now. That's good. Yeah.
It's been nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last one is podcast. It performed quite well, very timely innovation for small businesses that we made with our small business podference, which is actually going on this month as well. If you want to search for it on wherever you get your
Small
podcasts.
Business yeah.
And so I thought it would be up 20 to 30% in 2020. And so far, that we're seeing that consumption is up at least 30%, this year on podcasts.
Well, and the crazy part about B2B, because I always have to put my B2B plug in here, was just like the speed of digital transformation. And I'm not sure if I'm remembering this right, but it was one of those like questions of who inspired your digital transformation, during COVID? Was it your CEO, your CIO, or COVID itself? And of course, it was COVID itself. It was just such a catalyst for like, oh my gosh, I think, IT departments knew they needed to do this and they had it in their, their roadmaps. But all of a sudden COVID hit and was like, okay, we got to do this right now. And that speed was just like fascinating to watch and be a part of. And it's really exciting about, where we are coming out of this too. So I was actually surprised at the speed of that digital transformation in that road. Were there any changes that surprised you?
Oh, there were plenty. And I love being surprised because, I think actually one of the keys to being a good marketer is just having opinions. Like if you come up with an opinion, it means that you've committed towards, a bet in your mind of something going a direction. And then when it doesn't go that direction, it forces you to kind of re-examine what your assumptions are, and you get a lot of insight from that. So laptop sales really, really surprised me as part of COVID.
Oh my gosh.
Rediscovered laptops. Did you buy any laptops at the beginning of this?
Not only did I order one, but like all my friends did too. So at Dell Technologies, I'm an employee, so I get these discount codes. And in the past, I'd throw one out to my friends whenever, they needed one. And there is a limit on them. And I actually reached my limit of giving them out, which has like never happened to me because of this, like everyone's needing to refresh, or they going into COVID, they're like, I want the best, system I can have because this is something I'm going to be on and using a lot. And that was absolutely true.
Yeah, I bought 3 Dell laptops at the beginning of this as well. I bought, new Chromebooks for my kids because their school ones were not working very well. I was like, let me just go get something that I know is going to work very well. And then XPS is the standard in our household. If you're related to me and you don't own an XPS, that's what I buy for you.
I'll pitch, I do the same thing. I've gotten a lot of people to a different computer by just talking about XPS. You get touch screen, it's sleek, it's, blah, blah, blah.
And, the average length of ownership going into this was approaching 6 years. People would have a laptop. But during COVID, screens were our only means of connection to people.
Yeah.
Mobile screens were just not big enough. So laptop sales really surged. And I think people are going to be surprised by how much better laptops have gotten in the last 5 years. And this all really makes me think of Apex, of as a service for laptops, because things really do get better every year. And we all upgrade our phones. I see that as a very valuable proposition to business.
And you think of like I'm sorry, interrupted. But
no, I was good. Yeah.
Of ownership, but then that S curve of innovation too, which is like it just keeps increasing. So even though laptops are lasting longer, which is great from a consumer perspective, but in business, you typically want to have the best, fastest processors. So I really, and there are some consumers who absolutely want that too, especially those gamers. And so I do feel like this could be a niche to get into because, people want to have the latest in their hands, and it's exciting.
Yeah, so definitely laptops. And then the other one was online groceries.
I was part of that.
Yeah. And so Work said that e-commerce grew 30 times faster than average. than their average pace. It's so
Wow.
incredible. And it's like, that in context, that doesn't surprise me. But what surprises me is that they say 75% of consumers shift towards digital groceries will actually be a permanent shift. And I'm surprised by that because, I actually do like, I like choosing my own thing. I thought that I did. I
Oh,
thought that I valued going
no,
to the
no.
grocery store. Okay. And now I realize
Yeah.
that there's this one innovation that as many marketers can take. I think this is something that everyone should think about how they can take advantage of this innovation, which is the one-click add to cart. If you ordered something before and it was a
Yeah.
basket of goods, what
Mhm.
is, the way that you can just shorten the number of clicks? And so now when I go to Seamless, I reorder my last order.
Yep.
When
Same
I
thing.
go get groceries, I start with what I ordered before and then I customize it a little bit. And the amount of time it saves is unbelievable.
Yeah, I do Shipped. And I was actually an early adopter. I mean, I'm a working mom. And so, like, I was actually doing that. And when COVID hit, like, it was really hard to find a slot. And I'm like, hey, everybody, like, I was doing this before you. But, like, now it's like, I don't go to the grocery store anymore because I just, it's just so easy. I can just do it from my desk and, they're there at the end of the day. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, lots of changes.
Lots of changes, and I'm happy we're going to be able to meet those together. But
Yeah.
that's our topics. That's our
Well, this
topics
was
for
fun to
today.
cover both B2B and consumer.
That was fun. I like doing that with you. That was very good. And
So
so, Rachel, thank you so much for your time today. And I'm
thanks for
really
having me.
looking forward to continuing to work together to evolve with consumers, and realize the future of commerce. And anyone who's watching this, if you're interested in reaching out to either of us on LinkedIn or anywhere else, we're happy to connect with you.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye.